Hello folks, it is Monday. I hope you're having a wonderful day as we look over the mountains here and we try to have a bit of a zen moment. I just tried to record a nice session of Hobby Nightmares there, only to have to stop halfway through because the subjects that were getting talked about halfway through that nightmare were way beyond what I want to be covering on Hobby Nightmares. So after a swift chill out and chill down, I guess, and a nice can of beer, I'm now chilling out and I'm ready to record once more. If you want to send in any Hobby Nightmares, make sure you do it at hobbynightmares@gmail.com. That is hobbynightmares@gmail.com, and I will endeavour to get them read out as quickly as possible. So, first of all, is one from Discord, and before you say anything, I won't be doing Discord Hobby Nightmares for a long time because we're doing it on the emails now, but I will read out this one because it's been waiting for quite a while for me to cover it, so let's jump into it, shall we? And it is from Susan, and she says, Hello Northern, hello. I've recently seen your video about the 10th edition of Warhammer 40,000 and how you quit Warhammer 40k as a game, and with the context of that video, I have a story to share, okay? I've been fascinated by Warhammer since I was a little kid. That was around 4th or 5th edition of the game. But only in 9th edition did I finally have the funds to go all in into the hobby, with a stable job and some disposable income. Roughly in the middle of 9th edition, I really started disliking the power creep, and for me, personally, 10th edition is the version of the game which rekindled my love for Warhammer. Well, that's good. To the point that I've really wanted to help the community in any way that I could. One local game store organises Wargaming Academy, quote unquote, each dedicated to a specific system. It's all about showing the game to the people who are willing to try it out. For the first few months, I've been organising such academy for Warhammer 40k here in Poland. Okay, good for you. And that's when I faced the wrath of the competitive community. I see Warhammer as a cool game to have fun with friends. So I've even hosted casual tournaments for people fresh after the academy, with a focus to play smaller 1000 point games, having fun and meeting new people to play with. Just recently, I've learned that some players decided to boycott said tournaments. Okay. It's probably an aftermath of me criticising Warhammer tournament format, but I had no idea that the whole competitive community decided to boycott the tournaments because I'm the one organising them. It's not a matter of tournament being for casuals and new players, it was a me problem because I dared to once criticise their way of playing. Okay. Alright. Here's the thing, my love. Here's the thing, Susan. Alright. I'm gonna just come out and say this. Alright? Prepare yourself. The amount... I've been doing Hobby Nightmares now for a good couple of years. I've been doing this for a while. And I've learned in that time that there are two sides to every single story. The sheer amount of times a Hobby Nightmare has been very victim-based, right? Like, this happened to me, oh my god, this happened to me and it was so bad, oh my god, right? Those ones. And there's another side to the story. And that other person emails me later on and says, you don't need to put this on your channel. I'm not bothered about public, justification. I just want you to know the other side of the story. And the amount of times I get an email from somebody else who completely debunks what the original Hobby Nightmare said with receipts. Like, almost, I'm not going to say almost, but like, I'd say 1 in 3 Hobby Nightmares that I get when somebody is, like, being a victim in the nightmare, there's another email that comes in saying, actually, right? Do you know what I'm saying? Now, every other nightmare I get is I assume to be kosher because other people come in and back it up later on. I've had the famous Jensen as one of those, right? I had one guy, we did a nightmare on Jensen, and all of a sudden, we've got multiple nightmares on the same guy. Or other people who've met the same guy who've come in and gone, hey, and they get talking to each other in the comments. Happens on my videos all the time. So I always go into Hobby Nightmares fully believing what I'm being told, right? 'Cause unless you give me a reason not to. But the ones that get my alarm going off in my head are the ones where they say, oh, I was the victim here, they did this to me, and they don't really give me like a reason why it happened to them. They want someone to feel sorry for them because they know I'm a soft touch and that's what I'm going to do. But the amount of times those emails are followed by another email once I've covered them saying, yeah, that was a load of nonsense, and here's the receipts. Yeah. So I'm not going to not believe you. I'm just going to treat this with a pinch of salt until you give me some receipts. All right? Okay. All right. But that's not all. One of the guys working there at this competitive place tried to sneakily replace me behind the back of the store owner, despite the store having a stance that it's a hobby, not the Olympics. This whole situation just showed me how man-childish some competitive players are if you even try to disagree with them. Safe to say, I've quit with the academy. I didn't get any benefits from sacrificing my time or organising those, and sold one of my 40k armies. Particularly because I wanted to free up some funds for other gaming systems, because Drukhari are very hard to transport for games, and I still have my favourite army, which is Sisters of Battle, as well as a significant force of Chaos Space Marines. This whole situation is even weirder if you look at the tournaments that are held in Poland with these WTC table layouts. Okay. Is that World Tournament Circuit? Is that what that means? Part of the wargaming hobby for me is adapting to the table which is set up, and adjusting your strategy and positioning accordingly. I agree, that's a big thing of it, yeah. WTC has set table layouts which are always the same, and the building used at tournaments are the most hideous? That's complete. I know you're Polish, man. I'm going to give you some slack there. The most hideous train I've ever seen. And, yeah. Some of the buildings that are used at tournaments are some of the most heinous that I've ever seen, with some pieces of HDF without textures assembled together because they needed to be disassembled at will. Okay. Do you know how you sound here? You sound like me when I'm talking about Dark Souls. You know what I mean? Now, I fully admit, over time, I've had to play. I went and re-examined how I felt about Dark Souls. Right? I went away, and I still probe these people because it's so funny to see them squirm and cry. It just makes my day when they go all annoyed because I've said that I don't like a video game that they like. The mind boggles. But I've actually gone and replayed most of the Dark Souls games. Shock horror, right? And turns out I actually quite like the Dark Souls games. Yeah. Don't get too excited. Here comes the backhanded compliment. I like the Dark Souls games for what they are, right? And as soon as I start to get frustrated, I go and play something else. We had a very good discussion on the stream the other day when we were playing Tarkov, and I was talking about difficulty, right? I like difficulty when it means that I'm being challenged and I'm going into rules that are, there's rules for everybody, and by those rules, I've lost the game. Fair enough. And we were talking about a game called Alien Isolation. I'm sorry for going on a tangent here, but it's going to come back to the story, I promise. We were talking about a game called Alien Isolation and how the alien in that game breaks the rules sometimes. And the reason it does that is because the AIs that run the game have a very specific set of parameters where, where the alien can see you, when it can sense you, and when it can actually come and get you, sort of a thing. But sometimes the AI, the director of the game, breaks all those rules and has the alien come and get you no matter where you are or what you're doing, right? And it does that on purpose to try and not frustrate you, but to make you feel that this thing is utterly unpredictable and can kill you at any time, right? Right. That is the one time where I can say a game breaking its own rules made me feel better about playing the game. Dark Souls does the same thing. It breaks its own rules at will all of the time. And as far as I'm concerned, it only does it for the frustration of the player. And other people get a load of really good feeling about finally beating a boss because they spam it and brute force it, right? I don't. I beat the bosses in Dark Souls, and I don't get a sense of accomplishment at all. Because I know I've not really learned anything. I've just spammed it. I've learned a few movesets and then spammed it, and then I've won. Or I've got a really good build. That's not fun, right? So whilst I enjoy Dark Souls in a little, in a little smidgen every now and again, they're not for me, right? There we go. It's just not for me. Now you sound like me when I used to talk about Dark Souls, but you see what I just did there, right? I came up with a valid reason why it's not for me. And just because I don't like something doesn't mean that other people are stupid for liking it. Yeah? Other Dark Souls players aren't stupid for liking Dark Souls. They like Dark Souls. That's what they do. And I have also noticed something, Susan. I've noticed something else. Polish people and people from Eastern Europe tend to like really difficult games and really dour experiences. They tend to like really doomer stuff. Grimdark is huge over there. Trench Crusade, all that stuff. If you go to a Polish dude and you show him like a grimdark fantasy setting, he's going to get his wallet out and start throwing whatever the currency is over there. Probably rubles. Sorry, I'm kidding. You know what I mean? He's just throwing money at you. Because they love that shit, right? They love it. For good reason as well. I don't know why, but for good reason. It's cool stuff. But they enjoy high difficulty things and things that, And so I imagine the tournament scene over there will be very much a similar thought process to a lot of the Dark Souls community. And that's why I brought it up. So I see your frustration. And yeah, you know what? Again, people have had a go at me too for not liking Dark Souls, but I just think it's hilarious that, they get their knickers in a twist because I don't like something that they actually like. Dude, I'm allowed to not like something that you like, and you're allowed to not like something that I like, and vice versa. It doesn't matter, right? Move on with your day. I think the problem that people had with some of my opinions, though, is that they didn't seem to think that they were backed up by fact. But obviously now I've said what I've said just then, they know that, yeah, actually, I have played Dark Souls. I do enjoy parts of Dark Souls, but it's not for me, and here's why. When you approach a group that vociferously loves something with genuine, good-hearted critical analysis, and you say, listen, it's not for me, and here's why, most of those groups will be like, you know what, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, okay. But what you may need to examine is what kind of attitude did you go to them. If you went at them and said your whole tournament scene's stupid, and this is stupid, and that is stupid, and you call them a cancer later on in this email that you sent me, right? You literally, I'm going to read it out in a minute, but you literally call them a cancer later on. So, if you went in with that kind of an attitude, is it any wonder that they didn't like you and they didn't want to be around you? I don't know. There's two sides to every story, anyway. Let's carry on. Another argument those players which now hate me bring is, if it's painted, it's distracting. Or if you paint it in the dimensions, don't match the layout. And at the same time, they require fully painted armies at their events. That was even a problem for me in 9th and 10th. I know for a fact I will not attend any tournaments held by those clowns. There you go, you call them names again. That's how you make the game look bad for casual people. I'll keep playing 40k, but only in my closed circle of friends on pretty tables, and will avoid the cancer called competitive play. For tournaments, I have a Legion and Malifaux, which are much better games rules-wise anyway. I agree with that. Overall, I'm honoured to be hated by the competitive players, but at least I avoid drama surrounding them, like people being drunk at the event at 11 AM and puking all over the whole toilet, or spilling alcohol over somebody else's models just because. I'll end the small write-up with this. Don't give up on 40k as a game, because we, casual players, which just want to have fun, do exist, despite competitive players saying otherwise. P.S. If you want to see those competitive terrain sets, here is the link to the official 40k Polish League. Okay, I did have a look at that. And yeah, I did have a look at that. But at the same time, and it did have quite a few people there wearing my favourite, and you all know what my favourite is, right? Team t-shirts. I'm sorry. I'll never stop finding it funny. I will never stop finding it funny. We're going to play toy soldiers. Get your t-shirts on, boys. Make sure it's got your name on it. So I love you all. I love you all. Like, carry on being the little weirdos you are, man. I love you. Absolutely. And you know what? It's fine. You know, wear your t-shirts and all that and stuff like that. But, like, yeah, the types I was seeing on those videos, yeah, I can imagine them being very, you know, they were doing, like, team huddles at the start of events and stuff and be like, 1, 2, 3, go team! Roll the dice! You know, like, that kind of thing. And, like, yeah, I if that's me, I don't know whether I'm just a cynical Brit, but I'm looking at that going, oh my god. Nerd. I know it sounds horrible. And it sounds... Dude, I am a nerd. I like nerdy stuff, right? But it doesn't define me, and also, like, that I do find some of that stuff kind of cringe. You know, I've never got it. You know, what do you need a team t-shirt for? Are you going to sweat? Like, do you have branding deals? No? Okay, well... Oh, God. Anyway, I do think you're being a bit harsh on them. And there's always two sides to every story. Do you know what I mean? I don't mind you going to tournaments. I will never spoil somebody else's fun that way. If you like competitive play, dude, do what you need to do. You have competitive play. It's not my jam. Not really, right? And I guess you're doing the same thing too. You did the right thing. You said, you know what? This isn't for me. I'm going to leave, right? But I just think there's more to this story than meets the eye. You know, I don't think normal people react the way they did to you if all you did was, you know, call them out on certain things that you don't think are very good for the hobby. You know, I just don't believe that at all. Just be very careful. Is all I'm saying. You know, you can write in Hobby Nightmares, but if I smell a rat, I'm gonna say it, right? Okay, but you did the right thing. You're on your own now. You're having fun. That's what you're supposed to do. Stick to your own tribe if they're making you happy, and let them have their fun too. You know, there's space for both. There's space for being competitive, and there's space for being casual. You know, I'm more of a casual side, but I respect the chutzpah and the go-get-em attitude of most competitive players. You know, I find certain aspects of their behaviour strange and a bit cringe. Sure, why not? You know, but just happens. Each to their own. Live and let live. Can I figure out? Can I think of any more idioms about being nice? No, I can't. Anyway, moving on. Mike says, "Hey North, Mike here. I recently discovered your YouTube channel and have been loving it. Listening to the plethora of horror stories has unlocked memories of my own from over 20 years of tabletop wargaming. So, I plucked one tale from the vault and thought I'd share it with you. My story takes place around the release of Kill Team in 2018. At the time, my relationship with Games Workshop was a bit hit or miss. I had grown up with it since 3rd edition 40k and lived through all the ups and downs that followed, especially since I was actively retailing Games Workshop products myself. The reboot of Kill Team piqued my interest, particularly because my gaming focus had shifted to skirmish-sized games like Infinity, Malifaux, and Batman. Having been on a Games Workshop purchase sabbatical for a few years, I decided to dive in and treat myself to the core box and one of the themed terrain packs, the Industrial Prometheum Pipeline set. Whatever its actual set name was has long eluded me. I remember those. I remember painting copious amounts of them. My god, that was annoying. Anyway. On a whim, and with a day off work, I decided to drive and pick up both boxes. I grabbed the starter from a friendly local game store and the Prometheum set from a Warhammer store. And yes, that rebranding still sucks. I agree. And they did it because they don't want you playing games in the store. That's why it's now called Warhammer and not called Games Workshop. Because it's a lot easier to justify not doing games in a shop called Warhammer than it is doing it in a shop called Games Workshop. But moving on. Now, to add a bit of context, I'm Australian. And the drive to the Warhammer store was 45 minutes each way, assuming traffic was kind. Dude, Australia's bloody massive. There's a comedian called Steve Hughes, right? And he was going to he's going to, now please forgive my Australian accent, right? he told a story about being in the UK. Right? I'm coming over here. I've actually met Steve Hughes a few times. Right? And he wants to get the train up to Liverpool. Right? He's in London. And he's like, yeah, can I have a ticket to Liverpool? And they're like, yeah, sure. That's 300 quid, whatever it was. And he goes, what? And he goes, and the guy behind the ticket office went, yeah, it's like halfway across the country, innit? And he went, yeah, but your country's only 6 hours big, mate. In Australia, it takes me 6 hours to put the fucking bin out. Just always got to me. It's always got to me. Just him walking down the driveway for 6 hours, putting his bin out, and then walking 6 hours back, you know, not blinking an eye. Anyway, I don't mind driving distances for my hobby. In fact, I enjoy it as an extension of the experience, catching up on podcasts and whatnot. Soon enough, I had both big boxes in hand and rushed home to start building all the plastic crack contained within. Later that afternoon, as I was going through the Prometheum set eyeing the sprues, I noticed one was missing. Simply not there. In its place was another extra part of another sprue. Having sold Games Workshop stock, I knew this wasn't a huge ordeal and didn't stress about it. I called the store, where I purchased it, and advised them of the mispack. The guy I spoke to, let's call him Rod, said, no worries mate, bring the box down, and they'd replace the sprue at the store and the stock that they had out back. Since I wasn't going to be able to make it down anytime soon due to my work week, I decided to jump back in the car and make the 45-minute drive to the Warhammer store. Again, no biggie, more podcast time for me. Yeah, fuel costs though, man, fuel costs. I returned to the store, box in hand, including the extra sprue. The first staff member I ran into was the manager, let's call him Harry, who had no idea about the issue. I explained it to him, expecting a simple replacement as Rod had advised over the phone 50 minutes earlier. But Harry started berating me about my approach, claiming they weren't under any obligation to replace the sprue then and there, and even vaguely insinuating that I was trying to scam them. Wow. At this point, I noticed Rod, hanging back with his head poking out from behind the staff counter. I told Harry that I'd spoken to Rod less than an hour ago, and that this was what I'd been told to do. Harry turned to Rod, who now, visibly nervous in front of the manager, looked me in the eye and said, I never said that to you. Wow. It's bad enough that modern Games Workshop staffers often treat veteran hobbyists with disdain for daring to enter their empty, soulless stores, but having two of them suggest you're a liar trying to swindle them over one sprue of bloody pipes was infuriating. I carefully explained to Harry that Rod was lying to save his own skin for making the wrong judgment call on handling the mispack. Let's remember, this plastic sprue was probably worth about 1% of the time both Harry and Rod were now wasting to Sherlock Holmes their way through my supposed layers of deceit. Having now driven a total of 180 minutes to gather this box, which I could have easily purchased online at a discounted rate and shipped it to my door, I made it clear that the problem needed to be fixed, or I'd escalate it up Harry's chain of command. With nothing but attitude, Harry begrudgingly handed me the missing sprue, which he retrieved from somewhere in the back of the store. Dude, good on you. Good on you. Absolutely, mate. Good on you. You tell him. That's a ridiculous way to treat a customer. Did you go in there with a proof of purchase as well? You didn't mention it here. Did you go in with a proof of purchase? Because if you did, that's really bad. You know, I understand if you're driving all that way, you just forgot, you don't want to turn back, right? Then I can understand the manager saying, well, hang on a minute, do you know what I mean? But, like, nah, man, this is ridiculous. Like, even if you are trying to scam them out of one sprue, do you know what I mean? Why would you do it for a set of pipes? Do you know what I'm saying? And even if you are doing it, who cares? The models aren't worth anything. Literally. They're not worth anything. Just throw them in the street. I used to do it all the time. Just be like, you know, you give head office a call. I'm going to use these Terminators to glue them onto this bit of terrain. Is that okay? Yeah, we don't care. They're not worth anything. Okay, bye. And you glue them on. They don't care. I even said to my trainer, I've said this so many times on the channel, said to my trainer, what do I do if somebody walks out with a £200 box of models and they steal them from me in my store? Do I chase them down the street? And he looked at me like I just shot him. He said, no. No. Number one, we're insured. And number two, they're not worth anything. What do you think's worth more, the box that models are in or the models? I said, well, the models. No, the box cost us more to make than the bloody models. Don't you dare put your life at risk for a set of bloody models. That was my first major telling off, or one of them anyway. Who cares? Just give the guy a new sprue. What? To emphasise, I'm an easygoing guy who's worked years in retail and has dealt with Games Workshop behind the public face curtain, so I didn't walk in guns blazing. After all, in the grand scheme of things, it's a few pennies worth of plastic, I don't really care. The sheer unprofessional behaviour from these two staff members was unlike anything I'd ever encountered. If Harry had just cooled down and explained the process to Rod, had outlined to me over the phone was incorrect, and that a different process needed to be followed, all would have been fine. Anyway, I found myself in the same store a few years later, purely out of curiosity, while in the area with a friend. Let me guess, they're not there anymore. The staff had changed by then, but the entire time we were in the shop, one of the staffers followed us around, watching us like a hawk, as if we were about to shoplift. I wasn't surprised in the slightest, and needless to say, I haven't been back there since. It's a shame though, because that store, back when it was still called Games Workshop, was where I cut my teeth on the 40k 3rd edition. The fond memories of going in there with my late father, experiencing the joy of the store's atmosphere, has now been partially soured by incompetent staff who treat customers like villains, coupled with Games Workshop's current heartless and utterly unfun retail experience. Dude, you can write like a... You were really good at writing. Anyway, that's my tale over and done with. I have loads of others, of which I'll be sure to type up once they come to mind. Cheers, Mike. Dude, I'm the same. My local local Games Workshop used to be on Lord Street in Liverpool, and then it moved into the Liverpool Central train station. It's just not the same. It's empty. Every time I walk past it, it's empty. Just empty. Nobody in there. No games going on. Sterile. Manager looking miserable, just looking at the floor. Nothing going on. Because you can't play games in there. And if you go in there looking for stuff, they'll try and upsell you on the next best thing, normally Space Marines. If you don't want to buy that, they don't want to know. You know, yeah. They're fools unto themselves, Games Workshop, I'll tell you that now. Anyway, I'll be back with Macca tomorrow for some more hobby nightmares. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll speak to you soon. Have a good one. Bye now.